Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AI Revolution with John JDO, Bryce Smith, myself, Cody Willard. Um, as John was just saying, it's been a minute. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks. We had the holidays come along, and then John disappeared for a week, and then our schedules didn't work one week. And it's been probably 6 weeks since we've been here. I'm excited to hop back in, talk about the AI revolution and, some of the trends, the ideas. Bryce has been doing a lot of work on the AI revolution lately. And frankly, he has got a framework of how he's looking at the trends of the big companies who are doing it. I'm going to let him sort of frame the questions today. I'm going to mute myself and sit back and listen to you two, and I'll hop in if I come up with any questions I'd like to hear or comments or something. Take it away, Bryce.
Cool. So I also there's basically been no news in AI for like the last 6 weeks.
Yes,
being sarcastic.
Yeah, right.
Nothing has happened.
More like not a day has gone by.
Not a day goes by, right? So the thing that got me on this kick last week was Meta's earnings call. And for those that may have missed it, Meta, the Facebook parent company, reported earnings last Thursday night and had an amazing quarter. And then the following day, the stock was up 20% and added $200 billion in market cap. And it was the largest one-day gain in market cap ever for any company in the U.S. stock market or otherwise. So anyways, but reading the Meta transcript and listening to the earnings call, Mark Zuckerberg spent a good amount of airtime talking about the AI revolution and specifically the company's new goal of developing artificial general intelligence, AGI. And I think, Meta has been working on this a lot. They have their Llama models. They've had those out for, I think, most of last year. And now they're working on their latest iteration, which is going to be called Llama 3. So anyways, I went down this rabbit hole thinking about, AGI and what it means and what it's going to mean once we get there. And the real goal of my research is who's going to get there first and how will they get there? What are the limiting factors to getting there? So I've done a lot of reading on it, and basically my new framework is I analogize it to like biology, in that in biology having a larger brain is equivalent generally with greater intelligence, and especially having a larger brain relative to the size of the body, I think is indicative of more intelligence. And in AI, we don't have a big enough brain yet, I think. And in AI, the neurons of the brain are high performance computing chips, is my analogy, which right now are being produced by NVIDIA, and Facebook are starting to produce their own. And so in order for AGI to be achieved, I think, and John, I'm anxious to hear all your thoughts on this. This is my working theory as of 4 days ago. It's going to be who builds the biggest brain the quickest, right? And it's not, and I think chips are the neurons. I think there's also interconnect speed, bandwidth between the neurons, right? That's like synapses in the brain. So all these things are kind of coming together in my mind about what these big companies are really doing. And Tesla's doing the same thing, by the way. Meta and Tesla are both spending as much money as they possibly can to get as much NVIDIA chips as they can, as many NVIDIA chips as they can, and developing their own chips so that they can hopefully achieve AGI or some form of AGI relatively soon. So what do you think about that,
John? Interesting. I think first off, I mean, it's good. It's useful to have analogies. Gives us kind of a way to think about things. I would call it a little differently in terms of like, what are the neurons and so forth, or the connections and so forth. I think you could still say it's size, but I would say I'd go with parameter count instead of the processing units. They all need the processing units, and they'll all do what they can to be as efficient with all of their NVIDIA boards that they can, or whatever else they're going to use in its place. So the parameters you've got, they crossed over the trillion mark when they went with GPT-4, I guess, and all of a sudden you saw incredible difference in capabilities from 3.5 up to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go there. One thing I have to always ask is, what's AGI?
True.
Right? We're all talking about like, I'm going to get to AGI first, and who's going to get to AGI first. And it's like, it's pretty hard to kind of say who's going to get to the finish line first when there's not a good definition of the finish line. And I wonder, what's your definition of that finish line?
Yeah, I agree. And I think from everything I've read, somebody said, if you ask 100 engineers and computer scientists and AI folks what the definition of AGI is, you would get 100 different answers. And so, but the general consensus for my working framework is, a machine that can basically do everything a human can, or better, in terms of analyzing processes.
Everything. Analyzing processes.
Yeah.
So like we're left with stuff to unpack. Like, for example, GPT-4 already does better than just about every human at almost every like intellectual task, but it does it in a question and answer kind of way, not in an embodied way where it's in the world, where it's situated in a changing environment and is having to make decisions, relative to what's going on around it. So it raises a question right there. Does AGI, this is a question I heard recently, maybe it was put to Jan LeCun, who's the chief scientist at Meta, does AGI mean, like, does it need embodiment? Does the AI have to be in something, in the world, have senses in order for it to achieve it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. Certainly Tesla is working that direction. I mean, with its true humanoid robot, the Optimus platform. But I don't know, in terms of intelligence, I mean, couldn't, even if it wasn't embodied in that form, isn't there enough interaction between the analog world and the digital world that if the digital brain was able to do everything the human can, for all intents and purposes, we've achieved AGI, even if it can't necessarily sweep the floor yet?
You're kind of saying, like, have brain, will travel, like, here's the brain, and batteries not included, batteries being the body.
Well,
the eyeballs, the ears, all of that. And we're just going to assume that, yes, those pieces are missing, but just plug into it and you'll be fine.
Well, yeah. And I guess what I'm thinking is, if there was a digital brain that could do everything we're talking about, I mean, it could control gates on a power plant, it can control switches, it can control all these things like the digital world already controls, right? Without having a humanoid looking robot or something like that. Yeah, I think a digital brain in the cloud would be able to control significant aspects of the physical world. Natural gas pipelines are controlled via SCADA systems already that are all digital.
Yeah, no, that counts. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be a robot walking around, but I am saying, like, senses in some form. So that it means that it's, it is taking input. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about it being human-like, then the input it takes should be audio and visual. And I mean, it should be able to reason the way a person can. I noticed that, the window's open and it's the middle of the winter and, I better go over and close it. It's like, you could stop and ask questions about whether this stuff can be done, or you can see it's just like, there's a lot to being a human. And I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole either. I'm just saying that we've got a big blind spot, and the answer that, like humans can, is like, leaves a lot open to You know,
Certainly.
who's going to measure this? How are you going to say, oh, look, Facebook made it there first? And the next question is, if you look at what Sam Altman said, I think last week or something, he said, you know, AGI will get here and there'll be a little hubbub for a couple weeks or something, but then things aren't going to be like instantly a lot different. It's going to like take a little time for, you know, the world to make use of it, adapt to its existence, whatever, you know. And some people disagree with him there anyway. They think it's like as soon as it's there, you know. But that's it makes it the kind of the question, like if you're asking like who's going to get to AGI first, thinking that's going to give you the answer who's going to dominate or something, I could say, well, look at Google Gemini, which is supposedly, you know, by some measures better than GPT-4 now, and who cares? Like Google is like they constantly shoot themselves in the foot. So, you know.
Yeah. I think all that's, I agree with most of that. What hit me last week though, in thinking about, you know, OpenAI though is leasing compute power from Microsoft's cloud, right? Azure. And Anthropic is doing the same with Amazon and Google, and Google's running its platform on the cloud. But nobody but, like, if compute is the supply constrained factor presently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meta, Tesla, Microsoft, Google, they're all trying to get their hands on as many GPUs from NVIDIA. Now AMD's in the hunt, Intel's in the hunt, and then there's the in-house designed silicon. Compute is the limiting resource. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are leasing their limited finite resource out to third parties to build LLMs on and do whatever you want with your AI application, right? But Facebook and Tesla are investing as much as possible in their compute, and they're not, I mean, they're developing it for their own purposes. Now, Facebook, once they develop it, is going to open source it, right? But you can't just lease Facebook servers to run computing stuff on and design your own AI application. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
you're saying, right. They're vertically integrating,
right.
You know, and that sort of, I mean, they don't own the chips, but they do. They bought the chips. So now they do own the chips. Now they kind of have their supply for the processing, which is the key thing needed to move forward. Now, so even if you set aside the thing about like who hits AGI, but if you just kind of look at it more as, you know, that like your, you know, that thing at the where is it? Not the bazaar. What's the word where you go to like, you know, the church, I guess like a church used to do it in the parking lot, but the all the booths and all the little things you can, you know, and they got the one where you have to shoot the water gun to
like a carnival or something.
Carnival. There you go.
Yeah.
So, and you're trying to make the horse race, the horses move along. Right. So whoever has their chips, the most chips and them the most focused efficiently on the task at hand here, they've got the water shooting, you know, into the target and blowing up the balloon or making the horse move or whatever.
Yeah, I follow you.
Faster than, you know, the next guy. So they're, you know, they're pulling ahead in that regard. The other kind of limited resource is brains. Right. Like people talent. Right. And that is now you see how on the one hand, Google and others lay off tens of thousands of workers. On the other hand, a worker is paid $1 million salary, you know, because if you're operating at the level where you can actually make a difference in, you know, driving things forward for the next version of the Anthropic model or the OpenAI model or the Tesla model, you know, you're worth $1 million.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can name your price, I think, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg talked about that even on the call. He's like, we're going to be a leaner organization, and it actually makes us better, I think, because we're not wasting money on the people that aren't contributing value to our AI efforts, you know, and they're probably going to pay those top-notch people, those top-notch folks even more.
So on the one hand, I think that's one reason, open source could really work for them, is because there are a lot of people doing fine tuning and RLHF against these open source models like Llama, that you don't need to have those people in house, and they're doing it on essentially Facebook models, and Facebook can leverage that.
Have you, in your experience, used Llama models at all, John?
Just a little playing with it. There's a thing called Ollama, which is not a model, but it's software that lets you kind of quickly load up any of the different open source models, and just go in and do a little chat against, do whatever you want with it. But so there's now, they make it kind of easy to go like play with it. I'm more interested right now in Mixtral, which is a version of Mistral, which is another open source one. And even one more that just got it was from the Mistral people, and it supposedly got leaked. I don't know if that means it wasn't supposed to get out, or just it wasn't supposed to get out yet. And that one's called Miku, Miqu. And the interesting thing about it is it's the first open source model that's being compared to GPT-4. They're saying it's like very nearly GPT-4 level. It's above everything else on the open source side, which is sooner than anybody thought open source was going to get close to what OpenAI was doing.
And I don't, now that we see like there's, like you're talking about, there's not only Meta, but these other open source models, I just don't know if the real value is going to be in making a really nice LLM that everybody uses. But if it's really like at the near term, it's who's got the infrastructure to build these, really, like that seems like the differentiating factor. I mean, and talent, like you said, and having the right people to build them. But like
that sounds like that sounds like Levi's. Right, which started during the gold rush. I don't know if that's true, but that's an apocryphal story I heard. So you got all these people out there trying to go and pan for gold, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll supply them with some good rugged pants they can wear." And it's like, see, if you're the one supplying the ones who are in the fight, kind of, you can make the money that way.
Totally. Well, that's the thought. That's the framework. The ancillary to that is that I think Microsoft, Google, and Amazon might be making somewhat of a, I don't know if you call it a mistake necessarily, but I wonder if they will regret not dedicating all of their resources, their finite resources of compute power, to building AGI. I mean, are they selling themselves short by renting out their servers to Anthropic and Mistral and Miqu and everybody else that's capitalizing on them?
So what do you think about there's talk lately that Google is for the first time facing competition in search from the main one is the company Perplexity.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
And so they're at perplexity.ai, and I almost don't use Google now. I go to Perplexity first, and it's LLM based, right? So it's relying on this stuff as the way that you get better search results. And it's not really search results. You get an answer. So you ask it whatever question, and the answer comes back in a little paragraph that's specific to what you asked. And so like with Google, the good experience with Google, I might put in a question or I'll think of a question and put in the phrase that's going to get me toward the answer. And then I'll look through a bunch of links, and I'll think what link might have my answer in there. And I'll go in and I'll look at it, and I'm like, did that answer my question? Well, not really. So I'm looking to find the document that somewhere within it contains the answer. Perplexity gives you the answer, and it does it. So it's sort of like, you could say like ChatGPT, except that it's up to real time. So it would be, what's a stock price, what's whatever. It's right now, it's caught up. And then within that paragraph, it's got like footnotes, or like a little number at the end of each sentence, which are the links to where they got that particular answer. Another one is the ARC browser, ARC, where it's instead of sending you off to a page, they say that it's like the browser that browses for you. You get into Arc and ask it something, and it makes a web page that is your answer with pictures and with whatever, or with like a button in it for you to click to make reservations, or it's like it makes it on the spot. So there's basically, it's the first time we're seeing innovations that put Google's fundamental, cash cow business at risk.
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely a risk. I think Google does, for probably the first time, have these potential competitors. I mean, they almost have a monopoly on search, and that's being litigated currently in antitrust court. But I think we're long Google. We like Google. It's one of our main holdings. But I do think they have to address these real risks. But Google has a platform of applications from Gmail to Google Docs and Google Drive and search and all that. And I think Google, and it's all cloud native applications, right? Unlike Microsoft, yeah. I think Google will have an easier time, at least at the beginning, integrating AI in like a more seamless fashion into that family of applications, to where it's doing what you're talking about, right? Where I'm typing a Gmail to somebody, and then I'm like, oh, what was Apple's closing price yesterday? And I can ask it in Gmail, right? And bam, it plugs it in or something, right? That's what Google's not there yet. But
I've used the Google apps for forever, and both personally and at work, and I almost think of them as like Microsoft Office, but web based.
Seriously, yeah, right.
Yeah, they own that, and you saw what that's gotten Microsoft all that time. So yeah, they have not just the search monopoly, but they've got the a huge kind of installed base of all of the productivity apps.
And I think that installed base is going to give them it's a moat for now, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, and that's what I think Google's management has recognized in the last 12, 14, 18 months, is that if they don't have a serious AI competitor, though, that they can integrate into all of that, which I think Gemini probably is, and it's just taking time to get there, then yeah, I mean, there's risk that people start to leave the platform if they need to go to Perplexity to actually, if it's generating a better result. Then
yeah, I mean, which they could do, I guess, themselves, at any time, if they just chose like, oh, let's make it like that. That seems to be what people want. But they might have to make it be a separate thing, because otherwise you have your installed base who are going, why did you change my experience? So there's that. What do you think about the other one is Apple, who they've been basically silent, but clearly could, probably are doing a lot in the area of AI internally, in secret. And when they I heard somebody say, when they come out with it won't be called a language model. It won't be called, probably won't even be called AI. It'll called whatever they want, but
right.
It'll be they will have their own unique take on things.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think right now, as it stands, there's a lot of speculation about what AI at Apple will look like. On the last earnings call, I think Apple CEO Tim Cook mentioned that, this is going to be the year. There's going to be announcements coming out, but nothing yet, right? Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, how far behind the ball are they? I mean, when did ChatGPT 3 go live? In November 22 or something like that?
ChatGPT at all went live, November of 22.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
coming up on a year and a half.
Right, and for a company like Apple, $3 trillion market cap, right? It looks like they're behind the 8 ball on this right now, but. I mean, yeah, going a lot of the same logic that applies to Google, because you have this huge installed base, you have the brand loyalty, you have these amazing devices, and everybody's talking about, and not just Apple, but Intel, AMDs, and others talking about, and Microsoft moving the AI onto the device, right, where the language model or whatever the AI application is actually being ran, and inferencing is done on the device instead of it being routed to the cloud. And so Apple already has a huge lead in semiconductor technology. Their M2 chip for the Mac, I think, has the most advanced semiconductor ever. It has the most transistors built into it.
I've got it right here.
Yeah, or you're using the M2, and then their chips are phenomenal. So they could, if anybody has the capability to do that, it's probably Apple, and it saves a ton of money if you're not running all these applications back and forth to the cloud all the time. If you can run a language model natively on the iPhone, that's a game changer.
I look at it could be. I agree with you, but I look at it not just from a hardware base and did it get put in here and so forth, but if you look at the different players there, who's going to be good at the user experience to get even past the whole chat thing to, if it's on the device, it being really seamless with whatever they're doing. Kind of like what's that company, Human or something, the ones that make the pin.
I don't know them.
Oh, so they're ex-Apple people, but there's this thing and it's supposed to replace the phone in a way. Like you can hold your hand up and projected onto your hand is the keypad or whatever else. But,
cool.
Calling somebody or tapping on something. And, but definitely coming from almost like that movie that I don't know if you guys ended up seeing Her. But
no, I have not.
Yeah, that's on the list there.
Yeah.
But where it's like audio becomes a really important element. Audio is 3 to 5 times faster than typing.
Yeah.
And you're freed up when you do it. And now with the glasses from
Vision
Meta,
Pro.
I was thinking even just the regular ones that are more like glasses that are from Meta.
Oh yeah, the Ray-Bans.
Yeah. So where now the language model or whatever you call it, the intelligence can see your world the way you are seeing it.
Right.
And so when you go, what's that? You're pointing somewhere, looking somewhere. It's it just becomes a part of it. It's almost like what Google Glass tried years ago and wasn't able to pull off at the time. So that question of who's going to actually integrate the stuff really interestingly may become more important than, in the same way than you're so whoever's got a language model, this or that, it's really the chips. And I'm coming the other side of it. I'm saying, whoever's got a language model, whatever, who's got the platform that has integrated that model in a way that's just makes people not even think. That's just part of what they do.
Neuralink, that would be.
Well, it's real now. It's happening.
Yeah, did you see that? Yeah, so they implanted it.
They've got an implant now. So that if it starts happening more and more, if that does, obviously that's for quadriplegics and so forth. But it's a proof of concept too, though, of what else can go on. What do you think? I think it's interesting and ironic that Meta kind of flopped on Oculus and virtual reality. I mean, I'm not going to get overly specific. Does it work or not? Is it good? That's not the point. It was kind of he was talking about it like it was the thing.
Right.
Now, as he goes and says AI is the thing, Apple comes out with their Oculus Vision Pro. It's like the timing there is really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a good point on the timing. I think Meta was early to the VR game. I do think it's going to, I mean, we call it the VR, AR, XR revolution. And it is, unless besides a chip implanted in your head, probably having glasses or something on your face is the ideal form factor for this. I think is.
Well, I mean, Ray-Bans, not like gas mask goggles. You already see people walking around the street with these.
Yeah, have you seen those videos? Did you see the one with the Cybertruck? He's driving the Cybertruck. And
no, actually, I saw a guy driving a Tesla and get pulled over. But then there's somebody was walking down with their kind of robo dog, and it looked like it was in England. And but I mean, people walking along wearing these things.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think any of those videos are real? I feel like they're setups at this point. They're like the Cybertruck guy with the Oculus on. That's too much. I think that was
I mean, there are certainly people that are dumb enough. So
how can you say that, John? People of America, you're talking about.
Yes, and yes, for sure, definitely.
Well, no, I agree. And I mean, I think Cody is very down on the Oculus. I mean, the Vision Pro. I'm throwing him under the bus. He's a big naysayer on the Vision Pro because of the dongle the big battery pack that you have to pack around. And I think we have a bet in place. I think they're going to sell like 1 million units in the first year, and Cody thinks they're going to sell like 12 or something like that. So
yeah, I don't know how many units they'll sell, but go ahead, Cody.
You had to jump in for that.
Yeah.
I have thus far to this point been quite skeptical about the Vision Pro, but
Me too.
I still stand by the fact that this version with the dongle is going to suck, and people aren't really going to want to use it after a few days. But seeing what people are using it for and how it's some of the cool stuff that people are doing with it, I mean, I still stand by the fact that the XR revolution is real, is going to happen. And now Apple certainly looks like they're going to be one of the two drivers, them and Meta. I think what John just said is from the beginning, what I've been saying is the key to it all is you've got to have the form factor has got to be so much smaller. You got to have sunglasses, even, just
just regular Ray-Bans.
I still have my Google Glass.
Yeah. So like how much additional do you gain? There's a Google Glass. Yeah.
Cool.
How much do you additionally gain from, I know the thing's amazing. I admit that. Right. But like you get so much of it from your AI being able to see what you see. It's almost like the difference between Tesla, video versus LiDAR. They're like video was good enough and was the right way to go. But
what is like that?
If you think of the difference between Vision Pro and the Ray-Bans with the camera on it, I'm just saying think of the Ray-Bans with the camera on it as being like the Tesla with the video camera, as being like, you don't need all that to get 80% of the way there. It can see what you're doing and so forth. Yeah, I don't get the screen to happen in front of me. Maybe that's.
But I think that screen what happens on that screen in front of you is actually watching those videos. That seems to be about the coolest thing.
It's amazing.
It is.
Ask, what's the killer app though? Can you say what you think is the killer app of the Vision Pro?
It's a great question, actually, John. I would probably say like watching movies, watching TikTok.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's like, get this thing so that you can be a couch potato.
Eventually, what would be the coolest, of course, is a Star Trek holodeck feel to it. And that's why the goggles might be, maybe it's not Ray-Bans, but it's those old 1980s desert sunglasses with the protectors on the side even. But something like that where you got basically goggles, or maybe it's, whatever, just even like round goggles, but that are much lighter and much easier to put on. But then to have those on and be immersed in a movie or in a video game, and to be walking around. And have you guys seen, there's now it was at Consumer Electronics show a few weeks ago where I think it was Microsoft had built this this mat that you stand on. And if you run or walk, it moves underneath you, so you never actually go anywhere.
Yeah, they've had those for a bit, and or sometimes you're wearing booties that are a little bit slippery or whatever. There's different ways it's been done so that you can, move around.
Well, it's, using a physical, actual analog interface to make it so that you're walking or running or dodging in place and not actually moving, but the video game is interpreting your movements as moving, and then you really feel immersed inside of the video game or your work or watching the movie or whatever it is. I mean, that seems like the killer app to me.
It's hard to call it a killer app because it's now, because it begs the question. It's like you go, because it puts you on the holodeck, and I go, okay, what's the killer app on the holodeck? Or is if the holodeck itself is the killer app? I'm saying
virtual golf, lightsaber fights, karate training.
You're definitely going to the game side of things. Then
Call of Duty.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe, and then even again, I'll go back to being in the Star Wars, being in the Wizard of Oz, and standing there next to Dorothy instead of over and above her, wherever the frame of reference the movie actually recorded. And
then is there is there a whole market waiting to happen of content creators for, I mean, you just take all the game publishers and they say, now I'm going to make my stuff this way? Or can you take the world of, Instagram and these kinds of things and say, there's now the app for you to be among other people and you don't have to go create an app for that or a game for that. It's like, what? I'm in the same room with Cody Willard?
All of the above. I think, frankly, it being able to immerse yourself in a TikTok or in a movie or in a game seems like a pretty killer app. And even the promise of training doctors and attorneys, doing a mock trial that actually has artificially generated reactions to whatever you're doing, but it feels like you're standing in a courtroom, or to be doing surgery and actually feeling, having the sense that you're cutting in and opening something up and seeing where things are and how that bleeds or whatever it is you're training when you're doing the doctoring stuff.
Yeah, thinking of the the influencer economy and how you take an influencer. Again, Cody's not a bad example for that, but you could take anybody, take somebody super famous, whatever, and all of a sudden, you're going to pay to be in the room with them. Like, there you are, and you see each other's reactions, you're talking to each other, you're taking a question, you're whatever.
No,
that kind of experience is worth.
Jim Cramer would be a much better example than me, right? Like, there are millions of people around the world who would love to be able to sit in a room and feel like they're talking to Cramer, even if it is artificially generated. Certainly if it was the real deal and Cramer himself throws on the goggles and is in the room with you, that would be,
let's take that example. Because somebody like Cramer, and does do the goggle thing himself and whatever, and then it's like, people would, pay, we would kind of wait around the corner kind of to be able to get in and be part of this new kind of experience. I remember back in the 90s, I was reading, I think, Gödel Bach by whatever his name is, pretty famous dude. He won like the Pulitzer for it. And I noticed something in the book, and I emailed him, and I got a response, and Hofstadter, and Douglas Hofstadter, and I was like, starstruck, but I was like, I'm connected to that person. Like, he took a minute and said something to me. It was just that for me, that was like the first experience of where the technology.
It's amazing how, these days, just tweeting to someone, a celebrity, and them replying to you is sort of akin to that. But I have a business card right here. My great grandfather's business card. Wait, that one's mine. I copied his. LL Lindsay, and all it has is what business he's in and the small town that he was in. And back then, you wanted to call him, you picked up, and there would be an operator, and you'd say, "Hey, I need LL Lindsay, Madison, Kansas," and the operator there would get a phone call from your operator, and they'd plug in some stuff, and hopefully you talk to him. Or if you sent him a letter, you'd just write in LL Lindsay, Madison, Kansas, mail it out. And now these days, you get a business card. I probably have some here on my desk, and it'll have, just randomly pick one up. Guy's got a website, a Twitter, a TikTok, an email address, a phone number, another phone number, a fax. Like, we have 80 different ways of reaching someone, and the world did shrink as that happened. And we are, that's the sad thing of all the internet revolution and how it's gotten to where it's gotten, is somehow the promise of shrinking the world and enabling everybody to talk to everybody else and triangulating truth from that has ended up where Chinese algorithms are brainwashing my 17-year-old niece on TikTok.
And like the web, to some very large percentage of people, just means Facebook. Like, they don't know there are other web pages out there. It's like there became these walled gardens that are owned by Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And that is how people interact. Where it was supposed to be back in the day, it was like anybody could hang up a shingle, which is have your own URL, and somebody could go to you. And then it became, well, do you have enough SEO? Are they going to get there? So like we end up in this place where maybe this new medium sets us up for another try at how people interact. And to come full circle to
closing the loop and going back to what we were started this conversation when I hopped on about, that's what I have been impressed enough with the Apple Pro what you're seeing inside of the visor. I really have a problem with the dongle and that thing hanging around. Like, you got to get to the next iteration. The price has got to come down, but you can't have a dongle regardless. You've got to figure out a battery situation that's better than that. But seeing what people are doing with it is over the weekend on Twitter, I'm gonna have to order one. I'm gonna have to try it out. This is amazing. It's cool. And then of course, what's cool is once you get that and you build your home page and whatever it is, when you put it on, it'll transfer to every other iteration. We're on iPhone 14 or whatever, right? iPhone 15. I think 15 now.
15, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Apple Pro Visor 15 is going to be pretty freaking sick, man.
A friend just, did get Vision Pro, and I said, what do you think? Hope you're having fun with it. He said, amazing, better new product launch than iPhone or Apple Watch. Wow. He's got one, and that's his reaction.
Wow.
So, I was going to take it full circle back beyond Vision Pro to the language model thing and everything like that, or the AI stuff, is to say, there you go. The very first iPhone is to say, take all this stuff together, then what's going on with AI, what's going on with something like Vision Pro, and go like, who's going to make the experience? What's that experience going to be? Who's going to be in the pole position for what happens with that experience? Because you'd say, oh, everybody's making language models. Oh, they have AGI. Well, they almost do, and it didn't make a difference because it was close enough for what 90% of people were doing. Okay, well then these people have this, but Apple knows what to do user experience wise on their end of it. So is it in the NVIDIA chips? Is it in the language models that are getting created and getting those to AGI? Is it in, what people are going and doing with that? Is it the app, the next Facebook, the next Instagram, the next TikTok that's going to go on top of those things?
John, explain this to me, and then I'm going to hop back off because I was actually really enjoying you and Bryce discussing this stuff from Bryce's perspective, and I've hijacked the conversation since I got on here to defend myself from his unrelenting bus throwing in front of.
Are you upping your number now from 12 or whatever it was to a new unit?
Whatever it was, yes, I'm upping it. Yes.
Okay.
Look, how close are we to being able to put on a Visor Pro and say, hey, I want to play a video game where I'm in an orchestra with Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven being directed by Bernstein or someone, I don't know who the directors are, but you know what I'm saying? Like an all-star that, or putting it on and being like, hey, I want to play a football game and Michael Jordan is my wide receiver, Jerry Rice is my quarterback, and Joe Montana has to block for me. Like whatever you're.
Yeah. So what are the steps to get there?
But that you're able to basically immediately render the reality of of what you're doing in that holodeck. Again, going back to sort of Star Trek days where they would do that. They're like, hey, I want to do a mystery with Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. So like I would first say, what are the steps to get there, or what are the things that need to happen? And the main one is to do generative video, and that is already starting to happen. It's just beginning, but if you look over generative art, paintings and pictures and whatever, over the last 3 to 4 years, and how it progressed, and how all of a sudden it looks like a photo. And
Even
then
just in the last 6 months, it got
it's crazy. The
amazingly
speed
improved.
is ridiculous, right? And that's images. And now you can do things like you can have this photo of you've seen their commercials of it. Here's this photo of a bird sitting on a branch, and you indicate which pieces of it you want to move, and it will turn it into 10 seconds of video of the bird shaking off its wings or something, or like the tree moving around. It's like you indicate what parts of it you want to move, and it generates the necessary frames that are realistic of those missing pieces. So it's doing that at the level of not good enough video yet in terms of what it looks like, but getting there, and not long enough video for sure. They can do runway. Is it runway ML? They could do 20 seconds or something. But again, look over time and say, where were they last year? And they were nowhere. So if you take it on that same curve, we're only a few years away from Hollywood actors having to start to sweat about, I love the idea that within, at least within the next decade, there'll be no reason for Hollywood actors. So this whole
there'll still be like the old school producer, director, and there'll be like some 23-year-old kid who refuses to use an iota of anything, and he's going to do it in 9mm.
Yeah,
and it's going to be amazing.
Yes,
but yes,
and
the vast majority will be Steven Spielberg just typing in the plot.
Yeah, what do they call that? The exception proves the rule.
Yeah.
So it can exist, but on such a small level. And so that means that all these, narcissistic, wannabes that go move to Hollywood, and that shows what I think about that. But I mean, yeah, it's coming, and it's in the. I have to be a little pessimistic and say probably it's not till 2032 or something. But
I did want to share this. It was a tweet I saw where a guy used Code Llama from Meta to program the Snake game with one prompt.
Yeah, it depends on what was available to it. But
yeah, he apparently used Perplexity, the company you mentioned, somehow Perplexity with Code Llama. But
Code Llama is considered better than Copilot. So that's an example of where it's already past the
John, yeah. Can you hit last time, and then I really am going to hop off, let you and Bryce have the last 5 minutes or whatever and wrap up. But what was a succinct answer to Bryce's second question of his framework that Meta and Tesla for sure, maybe Google, are spending all of their AI resources generating the best LLM/ML, machine learning, large language model, AI, hopefully getting towards AGI, however you define it, getting there faster, a better interface than everybody else, versus the question being that Microsoft and who are the other ones, Bryce?
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, that they are choosing to certainly build the platform for AI using NVIDIA and their own chips, but then opening up that technology to people who then are trying to do it themselves and just renting the compute. So what is a succinct answer? Do you see that the Microsoft and Amazons are perhaps setting themselves up to fall behind the race towards AGI?
Yes, and maybe it doesn't matter. Like they're kind of taking their position. I look at something like I'm long Tesla because they know how to innovate over and over with new things and show that they can be successful with that. And then with them doing what they're doing with the robots, they're just amazing. But I would say yes, the short answer.
Okay.
Wait,
Thank
before you
you.
go, though, I wanted to ask you, flip this around the other way. Instead of us looking at, what's going to go on with the AI companies, is what could the AI companies do for the investor, the hedge fund investor, or just the investor, right? And so started to look at, what could these things be capable of? What role could they play? And you've had all these years of like black box trading, and you've got, whether it's Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan, or whoever, the big guys with lots of money would go and hire a bunch of data scientists, and they'd go and get things to happen. But this is different, because now instead of black box, we call it, I don't know, white box, but it's like,
Right.
Yeah.
No, John, I think transparency and a move towards ever more frictionless markets would be the answer of what AI can do. It's certainly, to this day, you've got programmers, coders at giant market making hedge funds or firms in general. Let's just go with Citadel, because it's the biggest example of this, that are sitting there creating manually the codes that they think will work the best. But at this point, I'm sure they're renting compute from Microsoft and Amazon and anyone else they can get it from, and trying to machine learn let the machines learn what the efficiencies they should be doing. Hey, your only goal is to provide ever quicker transactions, to arbitrage ever smaller amounts of spreads in the options markets and the stock markets and the crypto markets. And as machine learning figures out how to just set bid and asks most effectively, better than any market maker or human being ever could, fast forward 5 or 10 years, you would think that it would be harder for penny stocks to scam people with pump and dump schemes. And you would think that it would be cheaper to buy or sell any asset, because there should be efficiencies created by market making AI that would enhance that market.
I'm thinking of a different piece of it here, which is like your subscribers, if they're asking you, so what do you think about this? Or I was thinking about this and that. It's a different time frame than the kind of microsecond. Now we're talking about, but if you had a system that was taking into account somebody's own preferences, what their portfolio currently looks like, the balance of what they've got there, and what balance they want to retain with regard to certain things. And then if what's taken into consideration is not just, where is everything, trading and so forth, but like, hey, customer, reader, person, this is the AI talking to you. Here's what things look like. Here's what's changed over today. Here's what this and that. And based on everything I know about what Cody knows and what he thinks and everything, I think you should consider blah. And then that person could even talk back to it and go, well, I disagree about this aspect, or, well, why would you say that? Or, and so there can be a little of that involved. And then, so that's what I'm talking about. That.
Yeah, no, John, absolutely. Again, that's having spent now 25, almost 30 years interacting with retail investors, from my writing, from my TV, even from my days cold calling people as a stockbroker in the mid 90s. Certainly there is, there's a spectrum of risk tolerance, a spectrum of greed, a spectrum of fear, a spectrum of what's appropriate, a spectrum of how much you're going to inherit versus whether you need to take care of your parents someday, and all of that stuff. And an AI, there's, in my mind, say there's 20 different parameters that an investor could fit into. AI could expand that easily to 50 or 100 different boxes that are checked on a spectrum. somewhere, and then tailoring everything to, again, maximizing exposure to risk-free treasuries at the times that it knows that would be appropriate for that particular person versus another person. Bryce would tell you that we are anxiously awaiting Robinhood's efforts on AI to be doing this very thing. They have been talking about it for maybe 6 or 9 months, at least that I'm privy to, that they plan to roll this type of chat bot interface. I'm not sure what the interface will be, but some sort of
they're some
AI
kind of a
program
robo
that would do
AI
much of it.
advisor type thing.
So
Yeah.
you made you published a book recently, a couple of books, I think, right? What's the most recent one?
Everything you need to know about options trading.
Okay, so have you guys made a GPT out of that?
No.
So I think what it involves is like going to OpenAI and going and you create a custom GPT for free, and you load in your book, and it's basically using retrieval augmented generation so that your book is being referred to first as content that it will see what's right. If they say something like blah on a Thursday, it goes, oh, we mentioned something about on a Thursday, it's like pulls in the right piece, and then it goes to answer the question. And it's like, they call it like talking to a book.
Wow.
Can it do it this? We could do the same thing then with my generalized book.
Yes. And with your, yes.
So Bryce, like,
your,
and John, how, like, we're not at a place where I could tell it to, hey, sign into tradingwithcody.com and read all my articles and then replicate what I would say about this today. Or create a GPT that anybody can ask questions of the Cody Willard brain.
Yes, you could load it with, if not everything, with lots of it. You might have to do a little bit of combining because it might limit it to 20 files, but those files can be like 1,000 pages each. But you just like load them up. You just basically, it's very usable.
So you just use you would make a custom GPT with OpenAI and then use like API calls to have it on your own website?
No, what happens is it's only available to people who go get in ChatGPT. I don't know if it's restricted to ones who have a subscription, but maybe it probably isn't. Anybody using ChatGPT, it uses their connection. So it's not
an independent user could go on their ChatGPT and go search for Trading with Cody.
Yeah, you give them the link. You just hand them the link. They click the link, it pops them into ChatGPT.
John, and I think what Bryce is saying, in some sense, it'd be cool to password protect that and then give it as a bonus feature to my paying subscribers at Trading with Cody.
Well, there's easy ways. I mean, you do one thing. I would do it more like a freemium where you.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Everyone can get in the free one. And in it, it talks about right within it, it talks about, if you want to know more about this and that, and it points them to the.
Bryce, I think you know what you're doing the rest of this week. Well, we've got earnings calls, but in the midst of earnings-ish, we're getting closer to the end of earnings. So let's do that.
Bryce, let me know.
I would imagine within a week or two.
Yeah.
Within a week or two, between the two of us, we should be able to have something that we could send to John and be like, check this out. And then it'll be like, well, fix that, add this, and put it over here. And then we'll go to my subscribers and let them check it out. This is really cool, John. Great idea.
Great idea.
The Hugging Face, which is the kind of the center of open source models, just came out with their own custom GPT thing. So because when you use these things, you don't have to be the smartest language model in the room. The language models themselves are all great at, speaking English and knowing what you're saying and so forth. If it's relying back on your material, it can be in either place. But I think the OpenAI one's a great place to start.
We'll do that. We'll start with this and update everybody this time next week. I would imagine we'd have some sort of a working model for people on here.
That'd be exciting.
All right. You guys have 1 minute to wrap it up. I'm hopping off and listening. I appreciate your time and energy. Sorry for hijacking, Bryce.
I would let me
No problem.
like wrap in a summary wrap is just the three kind of different areas we covered. Just we talked about who's making it and who might get there first and why with regard to like the supply chain of chips and having the power and processing power. Then we talked about like the different approaches of the different companies, and it got us off into the the Vision Pro conversation, but which was another aspect of how does the innovation happen, what's it going to lead to, and then we flipped it around to okay, how does that kind of innovation apply to us as investors?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great. And I do want to say too, I think to be clear, I think I think AGI might be maybe the most valuable technology ever created and what I'm picturing AGI as. And that doesn't mean though that Microsoft, Amazon, Google as third-party cloud providers, there's not a place for them as well, especially in the near term, right? Because they have this massive allocation of computing power that they can share with the world. So I do think there's a place for both. I just think in the long term, Meta or Tesla might be, they're sacrificing near-term profits potentially by investing now. Maybe they achieved, AGI.
Well, and John, actually, let's frame that as a question. John, is that like a minute ago you said doesn't matter on one of my questions, and I guess that would be like in 10 years, is the ability to turn on AI for one of those giant trillion-dollar technology companies going to be like you can just they'll be leapfrogging each other anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So in my opinion, which I don't know what it's worth, but in my opinion, there is not going to be one AGI. So you talk about it like as soon as. By the way, first, Bryce, I agree with you. It's the greatest invention since fire. I mean, it's like. But it's the most important thing that humans have ever done if it works, because it gets us to like post-human world. But because AGI will take a while to roll out, somebody having it will not make everybody stop. I think you will have multiple different angles on it, which will give, and these folks, if they have it, they keep it to themselves. These folks, if they have it, they give you an API to it. These folks, they let you download it yourself, but it's hard to work with, but you can. It's going to be all over, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Bryce, you have any idea where my Tesla blowtorch is? My SpaceX blowtorch?
Did you take it to your house?
I might have. I don't know. I thought it'd be cool to be like, coolest thing since fire. It would have been a great prop at that moment.
I get what you mean. There you go. Yeah.
Thanks, John. We'll see you this time next week, everybody. And John Dio, we'll see you this time. That's at same place, same bat channel on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Peace and love.
Bye. Thanks, John.
Good job, Bryce.
Thank you. Bye.